Thanks all of you for being here today and spending a little time with us at OneCloud. So as Joe mentioned, we've been working with some of the guys at Axis for a little over a year now. We've had our software. We're a software company based here in the Boston area. Why don't we go ahead and switch it to the next slide. So we're a software company based here in the Boston area. We automate the use of Amazon Web Services as a DR site for customers that have their primary infrastructure running on VMware. So for any of you companies that are using VMware in your production environments and are interested in the public cloud, Amazon in particular, that's really what our software is designed to let you do. So we built something over the course of about the last 2 years. We've had the product, as Joe mentioned, we're working with partners and customers going back now since June of last year, deploying the software, testing it out. We just announced our general availability of the software at VMworld. So that was the reference to the VMworld event. So it's relatively recent that we've actually said, hey, now the software is available to bring to you. So in the course of the conversation today, I'll just go through a quick introduction of OneCloud beyond what I've just said. Dan will take us through a demonstration of a planning tool we built called Insight. Insight is freely available. It's made available to you as any of you companies that would like to see what a DR plan for your environment would look like. It does a discovery of your environment, lets you model different DR scenarios, including the costs of a DR implementation. It's a very powerful tool that Dan will walk you through. He'll actually also then go through what our recovery software, the solution itself, architecturally looks like, so you have an understanding of what we built, as well as a brief demo. So we're going to get through this pretty quickly. Just to recap, we're based right here in the Boston area, so Axis has been great to work with. Tyler, the guys in the engineering team, the sales organization, everything. We've had a great run working with the Axis folks. Our solution is designed, again, as I mentioned, it's VMware on-premise to AWS. There are a number of things we'll be able to take on as we go over time with that, with the on-premise tethering it to the public cloud. Disaster recovery is a very innovative thing, and it's really cost optimized, so we're really excited about that. We have about 30 people, almost all engineers in the company. That number is growing, but we have about 30 people in the company at this point and growing. And our first solution, as I mentioned, was just released. Our positioning in terms of where you would think of OneCloud for your DR needs, we're not on the far end of the spectrum here where you have your high availability, where you need a server back in seconds and you're going to have a redundant infrastructure set up in a secondary site, or even a near HA scenario where you've got continuously replicating data from site A to site B and the ability to bring that server back online in like a 10-15 minute span. That's really not what our target is. Our target is for the vast majority of the systems in a customer environment where you look at that and say, I need this one back in an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, and have the ability to say, I can set different protection policies for each of these applications and bring them back up on a time that suits me and pay accordingly. So that was the underlying premise of the solution. Why don't we go ahead? The last slide I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to hand this off to Dan, is really talking about how disaster recovery in the public cloud has become very popular. It has been now for the last number of years. Doing so, though, is not as easy once you start digging into it and saying it should be. It sounds great having this on-demand DR site in the public cloud that if I'm not using it, I'm not paying the full cost for like I would in a traditional DR scenario. But in order to do that, there's a lot of operational complexity that you have to undertake to actually make this work as a solution that you can automate without having to learn an entirely new platform like AWS, for example. So what we've really done is focused on these 3 pillars of our product direction, which is let's reduce complexity for customers. Let's make this something that you don't require an AWS architect to come in and actually implement this and manage this for you ongoing. So we've done a very high amount of automation in the software to make this an easier to implement and support. From a cost standpoint, the public cloud presents so many cost advantages in terms of the different tiers of storage and all the different things that you can do, but you really have to build that architecturally into the product or you don't benefit from it. because as soon as something's running up there, it's costing you money. So you have to be real careful about when you're automating something, especially something like DR, that you're continuously sending data up there, and you have to bring things up and so forth. How do you do that very efficiently? So we've focused on that. And then completeness. A DR solution that doesn't work, if you said, I have a DR solution, but when I actually need it, it doesn't work, isn't really much value. So we've taken great strides over this last period of time to build something that you can actually operationalize, you can afford, and it's something as well that when you need it, it will be there. So,
yep.
This
okay. So I just want to expand on one thing you just said there on the completeness. There are solutions out there that say they can get data up to the cloud. That's not DR, right? DR is the ability to automate running those applications in the cloud. If you're running those applications in the cloud, you're protecting those applications, but ultimately you need to get that data back to your on-prem environment. So we spent a lot of time making sure that we weren't focused just on the failover, but we really made it really efficient to get that data back on-prem in your primary data center and back up and running. So that's what we're really talking about when we're talking about completeness. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little different. I'm not big on slides. You probably have seen a ton of slides here today. So I am going to I'm hoping I can work through display issues here and get things so that we can see things nicely on here. We're going to work through that. I think that we'll be able to do no problem. But I have one thing before I get to all right. This is going to be the one that's going to be challenging. Wow. Wow. All right. I am going to go a little off kilter here. So not planned. But I'm going to do this for the sake of time. Let's do something here. That's not the right one. Give me 1 second. As you're watching me go through this here, I am going to play a video of this, of the Insight tool, because we're not going to be able to get it up on the Insight video. And we should be able to play this, I think, fairly quickly here. I'm hoping volume will be good enough, but let's give this a try. That slides. Short October 2014. Here we go. Now, this Insight planning tool that we have running up on the floor from 5 to 7 o'clock today. Be very happy to go into more detail on this with you guys there.
Hello, and thank you for your interest in OneCloud software. This video will highlight OneCloud's planning and assessment tool called OneCloud Insight, which is a lightweight application used to model implementation scenarios for a disaster recovery site in AWS. DR planning is often a mystery for organizations. The cost equation can be especially complicated when you consider the public cloud as your DR site. OneCloud Insight is the only tool available today to model DR for your specific environment and help predict the cost of using AWS as your virtual DR site. And the best news of all, a OneCloud Insight assessment will cost you nothing. Let's go ahead and explore this great tool. Insight installs in minutes and then performs a simple, non-intrusive discovery of a customer's virtual infrastructure environment through VMware Virtual Center. Once complete, we are ready to model what DR will look like in the cloud. To begin, we bring up the Insight viewer, which has been populated with the data we collected. During this tour, I am only highlighting some of the powerful capabilities. Please contact us for more comprehensive demo or to run the tool in your environment. To get started, we choose which VMs to protect, and then select the appropriate protection level for each application. The Network tab shows the bandwidth required to meet the target SLAs between the customer site and AWS. A model is generated for each DR scenario, and warnings provided if insufficient bandwidth is detected. More granular control of bandwidth usage is provided within the Network Details tab. Finally, the Insight Planning Tool Results tab provides a full breakdown of the associated costs for each DR scenario. This includes the OneCloud recovery software licensing and AWS infrastructure cost. The OneCloud recovery solution has shown that by optimizing the use of AWS, it can reduce the total cost of DR by greater than 50% compared to other options in the market. If you are interested in learning more about OneCloud, or would like to utilize OneCloud's Insight tool to model DR for your environment, please reach out and we will be happy to work with you.
Yeah,
Thanks, and have a great day.
This is something, it's available to any of you guys attending the show. If you'd like to run this in your environment, it literally is something we'll set up a 15-minute call, walk you through the installation. You can be modeling your DR environment that quickly and actually save different project scenarios, see how much bandwidth you'd need for this, and actually see the cost. So right there, we've obscured the pricing, but as Dan pointed, in the trade show this evening, come by, we'll show you the full breakdowns. We can talk through any of that with you.
All right, so that was a little ad lib there. Normally I would go through, you would have been able to see the cost, we would have done things live for you on there. There's actually a lot more detail that an Insight tool provides than what I was able to show in that demo, which I was hoping to go through with you folks today. All right, so let's move on. So what I want to give you is a little breakdown of how we do things and how we differentiate with others, what I think other solutions out there. The three key things, just to reiterate what Brett said, we really wanted to change how DR is done today. It's been way too complex, way too costly, way too time consuming, and really a pain in the butt for most people in IT. So we wanted to do something first that's easy. It should be, if we can make it easy to use, that would be really compelling. Cost optimized, looking at everything, every single thing that we do in the cloud. We looked at it, we modeled it, we figured out what is the most efficient way to take advantage of the resources provided up there. And then third, which we've already mentioned, is completeness. All right, so our platform. So we deploy on the ease of use. We deploy from a single OVA in your VMware primary environment. Once you power on that OVA for those folks is a VM template. So we run as a single, initially as a single VM, we power on, and we ask a couple simple questions. What are the credentials of your VMware environment so we can go off and discover that environment? And what is the credentials up into AWS, and what region in AWS that you want to work with? Once we ask those questions, we're going to go out and automate the creation of a bridge from your primary data center to AWS. So we're not asking, we don't expect our customers to be AWS experts. We've spent a lot of time ourselves modeling things and working through all of the different features and functionality that AWS has, and we've gone through and we will automate the build out of this bridge. So ultimately, we will end with a couple VMs running in your on-prem environment. The first one that we deploy was the manager. That's where our IP is, that's where our database is, that's where you go to manage our solution. The other VM is our worker. And it's exactly what it does. It does the work. It's responsible for taking snapshots, replicating data to AWS, and also pulling data back. Up on the AWS side, we fully build out an isolated network in the cloud for your organization. It's called a VPC, a virtual private cloud up into AWS. And that's where all of your DR and environment will be located. So we build that out for you. We do have an equivalent of our management server running up in AWS. This way, if you can manage from either one. If you lose one, you can manage from the other. So our own high availability. And we do have the equivalent of the worker running up in the cloud. But the worker in the cloud, similar responsibilities, but it's connected to the different tiers of storage that AWS has to offer. And we're going to really leverage the different tiers of storage up there to really make it cost efficient for the end user. So this is our core platform. To build this out, we deploy the OVA, we run through, this is called our bootstrap process, and in under 30 minutes, you should be able to start protecting VMs within your environment. So at that point, what does that mean? So at this point, again, on the ease of use, we do everything through what we call protection groups. You create protection groups and you apply the policy to the protection group. So if you say, I have these, maybe these are my tier 1 applications in your environment, I need those back in 1 hour. So you create a protection group, you give it the SLA of 1 hour RPOs, and then all you do at that point is you need to just assign VMs to that protection group. Now VMs in a protection group could be a group of VMs that have the same SLA, or it could be multi-tier applications where you need to have application consistency and so forth through multi-tier apps and those things. So create protection groups, you assign your VMs to those groups, and we begin to automate the protection in the background. You know, we do a big piece of what we're doing is trying to automate and give you a platform to make this much easier to use. So how do we do things? So we're not a real-time replication solution like Brett mentioned before. So we're really focused on keeping this cost optimized. So we do leverage snapshot technology within VMware, but we do things a little differently. We take snapshots initially, and then we take it into our worker, we compress it, convert it to a raw disk format, and store it locally in, could be tier 2, tier 3 storage, but whatever storage you make available to us. We do this for multiple reasons. One is we immediately free up the snapshots. We do not want to hold snapshots while we're pushing data up to AWS. That can have performance impact in your primary data. We do not want that. We want to eliminate that. So we hold that. Don't hold snapshots for very long at all. Secondly, having a local copy is going to allow us to do other things for you in the organization. And one of the key ones, which I'll get to in a bit, but it's going to make it really efficient for us to be able to do a failback. And that's going to be part of that completeness that we're talking about. So once we have it stored locally, compressed, then we're going to push it off into AWS. We use AWS's ingest to S3 for multiple reasons. We've tested many different ways of pushing data up there. It's very efficient. It meets the security and compliance checkboxes that AWS has already gone through. And best of all, it's free. It's free to push data up into the cloud. After the initial seeding, everything that we do is based off of change block tracking in VMware, and we only need to send the deltas up to the cloud at that point. Oh, a little fast there. Once the data is up in the cloud, again, this is where we're going to do things a little bit differently. So we initially push data up into S3. For folks that have knowledge about AWS, S3 is spinning disk. Not really efficient for doing consolidation points. This is a DR solution. You still have to have recovery points and so forth. And it doesn't let us to do the type of optimization that we want to be able to do up in the cloud to keep that storage footprint really small. So we actually move things around. We move things to EBS, which is solid state drives, which allows us to consolidate, allows us to compress, allows us to deduplicate the data, really shrink that storage footprint. And then ultimately, we do leave it into steady state in the EBS snapshot. Now again, not everybody being knowledgeable of AWS, but this gives us also, it's cheaper than keeping it in EBS, and it also gives us 11 nines of durability, which is phenomenal. You're not going to lose your data when it's up in the cloud. For failover, obviously this is a DR solution, so we need to be able to bring your applications up and running. So we automate the creation of subnets, to match your environment on-prem up in the cloud. You can run non-disruptive tests where you bring up your VMs, test your applications, and then end your test, and we clean up behind it. At no time do we stop protecting your VMs that are on-prem while in a non-disruptive test. If it's a production failover, very similar. We hydrate those VMs. We bring them up into a production subnet, but we're going to do a couple other things while we're in this state. One, if you're in a DR scenario and this is your production, this is your primary data running up there. So we protect that data the same way we were protecting it when it was running on-prem. So we're taking EBS snapshots to match the same SLAs that you assign to those VMs. And then we also have done our own IP up in AWS where we keep track of the differentials. So while you're running in a failover scenario up in AWS, we're tracking those deltas. And that's really, really important. One of the things that is key is keeping this cost optimized. But when you go to fail back, a lot of solutions haven't looked at the whole fail back piece, right? It's get the data up there, but we'll worry about that after the fact. We spent a lot of time making sure that we can efficiently get that data back on-prem. And this is one of the key things that allows us to do that. So we're keeping track of the deltas, and when you're ready to fail back, assuming you haven't had a true 100% disaster of your primary data center and we still have that compressed version over here, we'll only have to send the deltas back. That's going to save significantly on your time to recovery in your primary data center. But even more importantly, it's going to save you a lot of money because it's free to get the data up, but they charge to pull out. And that's true for any cloud. So this is going to make it much more cost effective. Okay, so fail back, I just kind of talked to a lot of that. So basically we've been able to pull back the deltas and we rebuild your VMs and back up and running. But obviously we do support the full failback scenario when we need to reseed the data back on-prem. All right, before I go on, any questions on the platform? Absolutely.
So during the failback, are you still continuing to run on production up in the cloud, and then I mean, is there any kind of downtime?
So ultimately, that's a great question. So it's designed so that we can, while we're doing the initial seed back on that full failover, that we can keep running, leverage our change block tracking. That would be the cutover. That would be the cutover, and that would be the window. Now, for fairness and transparency, on our initial release, it requires a downtime right now, but we have a little bit of tweaking to do to make that full. But that's that's the intent right there.
But you're doing all the seeding and everything else, and is during, you're still continuing to run in production, so your
and then
downtime
should be during the change, just doing the deltas after that point. Right. Right. Any other questions?
We only have like 10 minutes.
Yep, I have only a few minutes. Okay, very good. So anyway, so this is our platform. We truly believe that the hybrid cloud model is going to exist for quite a while. Our core platform, we believe we can deliver other services on top of it, but obviously DR is our focus initially. All right, now one more. Let's see how we're doing here. How's that look? Okay, so now we're actually in the recovery solution. So this is a live demo. I'm attempting to do a live demo to my lab. I've heard it's about 50-50 if these demos have worked. I have a backup, so backup, it's a second tab, 2 seconds, we can get to it. But we're connected to our lab. Again, from the UI perspective, we really wanted to make this easy. So we give you obviously any type of dashboard, right? We're going to give you information how many VMs you're protecting. We keep that local repository of storage. We can give you the percentage that you're utilizing, what's the current job status, SMTP and other notifications built into the solution. Everything that we do in the solution, we manage through virtual machine groups. So just as I said before, we create the groups, we apply the policies to those groups, and then as soon as we add VMs to those groups, we can then start to protect. And hopefully, we'll get my group here in a second. If not, I will jump over to the other one. A little slow. Yeah, very slow. I think we're in a little dungeon here. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll. I really wanted. Yeah, there you go. Lost connection. Okay, so let's go over here. I have an offline version. It doesn't have the latest UI on it. That's why I was really wanted to show you guys the other one. We've made the UI a little bit more eye appealing. So anyway, so in our virtual machine groups, so we create groups in here. You can see I have production group, test group, dev group. My group has the RPO associated with it. In this case here, it has an RPO of 4 hours associated with this group. As soon as I assign those VMs, it's scheduled, right? So if I schedule this, and in this case here, we have an offset of 12 o'clock. That means we'll protect every 4 hours, 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and so forth. Started this offline one a couple hours ago, so you can see that we have 2 protections that have already occurred. Everything that you do at this point is done within these groups. So if I need to fail over, I initiate the failover from within the groups. Now, very important, as I said, is we have 2 different types of failovers, right? If it's test, we got to keep protecting our primary data. If it's a production failover, that's what we're going to do, start protecting your data up in the cloud and also leverage our own change block tracking technology. Once it's protected or failed over, obviously the same way, we're able to kick off a failback to get that data back. And again, leveraging our change block tracking. Now, DR doesn't have to be more complicated than that. I mean, that's the key pieces around DR. In that platform that I showed you before, 90+% of what we're doing is fully automated. The one piece that we work with, or we work with Access and so forth, and they could work with you guys on, is setting up the VPN connectivity from your primary data center to AWS for running applications. So there's 3 ways you can do that. There's a virtual VPN, there's a VPG service that AWS has, or there's something that's called Direct Connect. But that's something that we certainly work with you guys. But 90+% of everything that's there is fully automated. Let's just see quickly here if I. Yeah. So one of the things I was just going to show. So I'm actually back to the live guy here. It looks like we do have a lot of information of what's going on under the covers. So if I come in here, you can actually see the state. Oh, maybe not. No, it's still running. Okay, so let me go to the other guy quickly. We actually store a lot of information while we're running protections. That you can actually track all the times it takes to do protections through in all the different states and stuff. So we actually have a lot of information available for you, how much data is being sending across. We provide bandwidth limiting capabilities, so you can limit how much the DR solution uses of your bandwidth out of your building, and so forth. How am I doing for time?
Pretty good.
Doing pretty good? All right, so at this point, I'd like to just open it up for questions. Yes.
Are there multiple versions of the backup on the cloud?
Yeah, so we want to make it configurable. Today, we're doing 5 days worth of recovery points. So we wanted to at least make sure that we get through any long weekend so that you can restore. Good question. Other questions? I think everybody's had a long day.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we will be around this evening. We have a table upstairs. We have the product running. If there's any questions about the planning tool as well, or the product, we have both products up there that we can run and we can show you.
And yeah, please stop by for the planning tool. I mean, we're not trying to hide pricing and stuff. It's all in there. The demo was something we put on our website quite a while ago, so we did hide the stuff. The one that's running on my laptop is real, so definitely please stop by. All right, cool.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.